Shrek 2. There are very few animated movies that you could actually say that they defined a generation, but the first two Shrek films are among them. I remember back in the early 2000s when Shrek was a real game changer in animation. Not only for helping computer animation with that one big push to make it the medium's industry standard, but to also give Disney and Pixar some real competition in the animation game. Kind of like a wake-up call for Disney that audiences are no longer dependent on them to have some quality cartoons. However, while the first Shrek established the new standard and its place in cinema history at the time, Shrek 2 cemented them. The sequel amplified what audiences loved from the original and went on to become one of, if not the biggest animated feature of the 2000s decade. In fact, before Toy Story 3 broke the milestone, Shrek 2 was the closest that an animated feature had ever gotten to making $1 billion at the box office. And this was back when even closely reaching it was unheard of for a movie like that. Even with me, I'll admit that as a kid, I remember enjoying the heck out of it and was one of the few movies in my childhood that I went to watch multiple times on the big screen and many more when it came out on DVD. I'll warn you now that maybe my nostalgia will make me a little more biased for this, but I'll still make sure that this review is as fair and honest to my opinion now as possible. So now that we're heading to far, far away, does it still hold up as a legendary animated comedy? Or will this show that maybe Prince Charming should have gotten to Fiona first? Let's find out. The story. As a sequel to a fairy tale story, the film has to answer the tricky question, what comes after Happily Ever After? In Shrek's case, now that he's married to Princess Fiona, he must face the next and toughest step in his relationship yet, meeting the in-laws for the first time. To which the fact that he's an ogre immediately starts him off on the wrong foot.
Shrek, please.
I only did that because I love her.
Oh, hi! Daycare or Dragon Guarded Castle?
You wouldn't understand. You're not her father.
With that narrative established, the heart of the picture comes from the love between Shrek and Fiona. During their first steps as newlyweds, they now have to confront how their respective environment that they grew up are completely different, and that connecting the two doesn't make sense on the surface. It adds a new obstacle where, despite already defying the odds, it questions if this would last in the long run and asks what is more important, maintaining the status quo or true love. It's a complex driving force, but it works effectively well because of how genuine Shrek and Fiona's feelings for one another are. In a way, even if they know that it shouldn't be, and the picture throws them, especially towards Shrek, all these problems to prove how dysfunctional this is, their choices and actions are for the sake of making it work because, at the end of the day, all they want is each other. Even during the tougher times when they get mad, their goal is to prove to Fiona's parents that they are meant for one another, regardless of what anyone says or how people perceive them. Despite this being animated and that they are ogres, it's one of the most realistic depictions of what true love is, and that's what motivates you to keep watching to ultimately see them stay together. Not to mention how it keeps the tradition of the predecessor with presenting the message that love is not about appearances or social status, but the feelings you have on the inside.
Fiona knows you'd do anything for her.
Well, it's not like I wouldn't change if I could. I just wish I could make her happy.
Also, not only does this work as a romantic feature, but it does a great job as a sequel. In the original, we learned a lot about who Shrek is and his background as an ogre. In Shrek 2, it explores more of Fiona's backstory, expanding the reason to why she has to be locked up in that tower and what her purpose in life was supposed to be before Shrek came into the picture. It's a strong link that helps give the new cast a purpose to be in this universe and simultaneously expand on its concept as a fairy tale satire to flip the idea of what having a happily ever after means upside down. It also has much more of an opportunity to many new possibilities with the world building and have plenty more fairy tales to play with and find different ways to implement them in a more modern-esque setting.
It's gonna be champagne wishes and caviar dreams from now on. Hey, good looking. We'll be back to pick you up later.
However, if there is one reason why people want to watch this movie, it's to have a laugh. After all, Shrek is first and foremost a comedy. And I agree with many that this is easily one of the funniest movies from DreamWorks Animation. Debatably, even more than the first. Yes, there are some moments that do satirize Disney and their old spin on fairy tales, but this one doesn't rely on that as much as the first. It's not as cynical for the sake of making that company look bad, and focuses more on being its own twisted fairy tale. It's the kind of feature that throws a joke to the audience for every second it has. So much so that you can rewatch this multiple times and still discover a new gag with each viewing. And they managed to nail it just about every time. Of course, as a 2000s movie, there are pop culture references galore, but the film also has this accurate sense of timing and have all these enjoyable personalities that can be consistently hilarious from beginning to end. I'd even say that one of the keys to what makes Shrek 2 so appealing to watch the whole way through is to see what they could think of next to give you a good laugh.
Tonight on Night.
Ah, now here's a good show.
We got a white Bronco heading east into the forest, requesting backup.
If there is one major impact that Shrek 2 left on modern animated films, it's setting the standard on how to write a story for a sequel. It expands upon the ideas of the original, it gives more of what people love about the first, and it stays true to the core of the picture to have audiences both love and laugh. The animation. Okay, let's be honest, the one thing that has aged the least well with all these Shrek films is the animation. Keep in mind that this was back when computer animation was still new to the mainstream, and there was more of a push to make these movies look as real as possible. Yes, you may notice that the technology to build this movie wasn't as advanced as today's features, and the realistic designs can deliver an awkward feeling. In fact, just thinking about it now, there's something about the idea of an animated fairy tale movie trying to use a realistic style that doesn't really make sense.
Very nice, Shrek.
What? I told you coming here was a bad idea.
Now hold on, this is not to say that I call this bad animation. Far from it, actually. Yes, the movie's technology is primitive compared to today's standards, but this is still a significant upgrade compared to the first film, and it was considered to be top of the line back in the day, where the effort from the animators to make the most out of it really shows and is still admirable today. What I think still holds up with the visuals the most is how it portrays Far, Far Away as a place that's so big, maybe even larger than Duloc. Yes, it's supposed to be big with the kingdom and the giant castle and all, but the backgrounds give out this sense that Far, Far Away is a thriving metropolis, filled with life to keep the place going, including areas that are outside the kingdom that the characters hang out and work, like the Poison Apple Bar or Fairy Godmother's Magic Factory. But the signature element of the backgrounds and Far, Far Away as a whole is how they're a combination of modern Los Angeles and the classic medieval style fairy tale look, where every corner is filled with intricate detail and present a good chunk of the pop culture references as fairy tale twists to familiar properties.
Talk about it, talk about it, talk about it.
As for the realism aspect, yes, a part of it does look uncomfortably weird, but I wouldn't say that it's disturbingly uncanny in the levels of Robert Zemeckis' mocap movies.
I don't feel any different. I look any different?
You still look like an ass to me.
Again, this is a case where the animators still made the most with the materials that they're given. Even with the limits of realism, the characters are still highly expressive and bursting with life to show off their personalities. And with some extra magic, the non-human characters feel even more special and add more to both the fairy tale setting and the tone of the movie. Rather it be Fairy Godmother flying around with her wand, or Puss in Boots' agility.
You got them!
Now ye augur.
I also want to note that the combination of these factors is what results in the action scenes to be exciting. Whenever there's a moment where the tensity rises up, It takes advantage of the movie's scale, its sharp wit to sneak in some extra gags, and the characters' personalities to go at a fast pace to have some fun and exhilarating times to hype up the viewer with what's going on. This is especially the case with the movie's climax, where it takes all of its strengths to deliver an awesome finale. I'm sure back in 2004, this was some of the best animation ever produced. While that statement may not be completely true today due to its age, it still doesn't change that this is still great animation. And yes, even by today's standards. The characters. Shrek 2 is a curiously rare example that the new additions are so good that they can outshine the already beloved recurring characters. Don't get me wrong, the ones from the original still have their memorable moments, and some of their best can be found here, but I find that the ones who made their debut in number 2 are some of the most enjoyable characters that make this movie really fun to watch. A big reason for this is their voice actors, who really highlight their respective personalities, and you can hear that they're having a good time with their parts and want the audience to have as much fun too, including Antonio Banderas, John Cleese, Julie Andrews, Rupert Everett, and Jennifer Saunders.
Yes, but she was supposed to choose the prince we picked out for her.
Don't you remember when we were young and we were down by the pond and...
You have engaged my valuable services, Your Majesty. Just tell me where I can find this ogre.
Harold, you forced me to do something I really didn't want to do.
There to await the kiss of the handsome Prince Charming.
I know I've already talked about the relationship between Shrek and Fiona, but let's start by getting into them individually. As a new husband, Shrek is ready to live at peace and be happy with his wife. But once he gets the call to go to far, far away and meet Fiona's parents, his trauma of continuously being shunned because he's an ogre comes back, and thus returning to his arrogant attitude where he'd rather want to be a recluse than looking for the approval of others. But even if old habits break hard, his love for his wife is much stronger, and he's willing to do anything to ensure that their bond doesn't get broken, no matter who gets in the way. As for Fiona, she's stuck in a difficult situation where her past has returned and now has to confront her parents to show who she has become. As much as she wants everyone to be happy, she knows that she has to make the tough choice of either returning as the princess of Far, Far Away so that the king and queen are happy, or be the wife of Shrek so that she can be happy. And then you have the returning comic reliefs. The other fairy tale folk like Gingy, Pinocchio, the Three Little Pigs, and more do have their moment as they help out Shrek and the gang near the end, but who I believe to be the true recurring star is Donkey. With his eccentric naivete and Eddie Murphy's comedic energy, Donkey has many of the funniest moments of the feature and will always make sure that he says at least one hilarious line in every scene he's in.
What do you reckon we should do with him?
I say we take the sword and neuter him right here. Give him the Bob Barker treatment. Oh, madre, no, por favor.
As for the new characters, there's King Harold and Queen Lillian, Fiona's parents, whom the king especially does not approve of Shrek, and wants to stick to the old plans of having her marry Charming so that she can have a royal happy life. However, he does have his own reasons based on his elusive past that he tries to keep a secret, which I will give this credit that it does pretty well to give subtle clues about who he really is.
Don't you remember when we were young and, we used to walk down by the lily pond and they were in bloom?
Our first kiss.
Then you got the villains, Fairy Godmother and Prince Charming. I love how they turned the usually heroic and supportive roles into this mama's boy duo, with the Fairy Godmother being this manipulative and corrupted celebrity who wants to make sure that she can keep the status quo in order to gain more power, and Charming is this privileged brat with a Gaston-like ego who takes his title of Charming a little too seriously.
He will rue the very day he stole my kingdom from me!
Oh, put it away, Junior. You're still gonna be king.
And of course, I can't leave this without mentioning
Puss in Boots.
Puss in Boots is Shrek and Donkey's new ally, who is originally a hired assassin. His cat-like skills and size, his honorable attitude, and Banderas' charisma make him a great new addition for more opportunities for the action and the comedy. Maybe some could argue that he's just included for the sake of marketable cuteness, but I mean... Again, the old ones are solid and memorable as before, but it's the new characters that really spice up the feature and make the world of Shrek feel bigger and bring more life to this fairy tale twist. Who knew that there was a much better tale to tell after Happily Ever After? Shrek 2 is one of the best DreamWorks features and one of the best animated sequels ever made. It takes everything that made the first film a phenomenon and amplified it to create an unforgettably hilarious experience. The story is greatly written that both expands the original concept and has a powerful emotional core. The animation is still impressive to look at even after all these years. The characters, both old and new, are enjoyably memorable, and the comedy is some of the finest you could find in an animated feature. If there is just one Shrek movie that you have to watch, I highly recommend that you go with Shrek 2. And yes, I'll even pick that one over the first. It's that good. And I know that whenever it's on, it'll be a guaranteed good time. Just like when you subscribe to my channel and receive videos and reviews like this that are always a guaranteed good time as well. This is not the first time that I've sung the praises of Shrek 2, and I know that this won't be the last. But in this instance, I'm happy that I can now give this the Animat seal of approval. I guess you could say that I love this movie as much as Shrek and Fiona love each other. Hey guys, this is Animat, and I want to start things off by giving out a huge thanks to Peyton Michael, whose amazing support on Patreon allowed him to get some amazing rewards, including this one where he got to ask me to review Shrek 2. And what a fantastic movie that was, and I think it's safe to say that I had a great time with it. And also, it's pretty funny that very recently, I got the opportunity to go and review a whole bunch of the best DreamWorks movies. Like, not too long ago, I managed to go and review almost in a row the first Madagascar movie, then there was Wallace and Gromit, Curse of the Were-Rabbit, technically, and now I got to review Shrek 2, which, hey, I'm not complaining. I got to do some work on reviewing amazing movies, so I consider that a win for me. Alright, so with that said though, I think now it is time that we move on from Shrek 2, and that we shall get into the animation hat. And by the way, before I get into this, I would like to say that if you guys would like to be like Peyton and you want to go and get some amazing rewards, including but not limited to seeing my videos before anyone else, then all you have to do is go to patreon.com/animat. But at the same time, if you would like to suggest an animated film you would like me to review and I would put onto the animation hat, then just write me an email at animatsreviews@gmail.com. Alright, so, now with that said, let's see if we can get the good movies rolling. So I just got one, already quickly. Quicker than usual, I must say. But, our next review shall now be... Oh, man. Oh, okay, so I'll say now that there's a good chance that it is going to be a good one. Don't worry, I think it'll most likely be a good movie, but the reason why I made that reaction is that this is one of those that's a lot more known to be a very emotional movie. So grab some tissue papers because there's going to be a very good chance that you might cry with what I've just picked.
Monte Cristo and coffee. Oh, sorry.